Mr. Barrie Kirk, who's the current executive director of the Canadian Automated Vehicle Center of Excellence, a company that provides consulting services, analysis, and recommendations to all stakeholders who are involved in the deployment of automated vehicles. Barrie has worked in the technology industries in Canada, the UK, and the US, including senior management positions at Ottawa area companies. He has been a consultant since 1982, specializing in the management and engineering aspects of emerging technologies, especially autonomous vehicles, connected vehicles, ITS, transportation, telematics, telecommunications, and satellite communications. Welcome once again, Mr. Kirk. You can share your screen whenever you want.
Okay. There we go. Right. Can you see that?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, there we go. And can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. So thank you very much, Adonai, and good afternoon, good evening, everybody. And Professor Nuranjat, I'm disappointed. I was really looking forward to disagreeing with you and having a friendly debate, but I found myself agreeing with everything you said, so I cannot be provocative, but we'll save that for another day. And also a shout out to Pratik, who has been very involved in some of the prior arrangements before today as well. So thank you for all that, Pratik. So just to build on the introduction, yes, we're a consultant. We advise corporations at all three levels of government, and we've done 3 different projects, for example, for the City of Toronto. And we do not build any hardware or software, purely consulting, and those are some of our clients. As I say, with the City of Toronto there, we've done 3 projects, and some international ones, and I've done a lot of speaking at conferences, less so, of course, during COVID. The vision for self-driving cars goes way back to 114 years ago. Nikola Tesla proposed and wrote a letter proposing an automated car which would have the ability to drive itself. And he was a man way ahead of himself. It was another 10 years after he wrote that letter before Henry Ford launched the Model T Ford. It's another 80 years before IBM launched the first personal computer. So there's no way that Nikola could actually build this, but he had the vision. He was such an amazing inventor that people at the time thought he'd been born on Venus and came to Earth disguised as a human. This is my agenda. I want to talk in 3 modules here. One is about CAV status, connected and automated vehicles. Some people say CAV, I say CAV, but they're both very common. Where we are today, then the impact of CAVs on everything, and then I want to zoom in more on the transportation side. First, the passenger CAVs. Virtually all car manufacturers are working on developing, showcasing their version. You see Waymo there, Ford, GM at the top left, and at the bottom right, you've got an English 4-seater electric pod that's being demonstrated here in Ottawa. And I see that the professor and I have the same photo of GM. So, but you can see with Mercedes-Benz, again, an idea of having dual mode vehicles, a vehicle, and this is only a concept, but a vehicle that has the seats facing each other. But the person on the far right-hand side could swivel around, grab hold of the steering wheel and drive the old-fashioned way, if they so desired. How will it all roll out? First of all, my first message is that the first generation of CAVs are here now. There are low-speed, fully automated vehicles, shuttle buses, for example, that we've all seen, low-speed in controlled, pre-configured environments. There's also a lot of advanced driver assistance systems, lane keeping, intelligent cruise control, automatic emergency braking, which are stepping stones towards autonomous vehicles. In the mid-2020s, I'm forecasting that we will see a lot of non-passenger cabs for logistics, service applications, and we'll see the start of the first street-legal fully autonomous cars, but they will be limited deployment and limited capability. I don't think we'll see broad-scale development and deployment of passenger cabs until the 2030s. And I define these advanced, fully automated vehicles as vehicles that can go anywhere, anytime, in almost any weather. There's still a lot of technical challenges to be done, and they're working on. These are all known challenges. I won't go through all of these. One is, pedestrian prediction. For example, like many people, I live on a suburban residential street, and if I see a couple of kids playing soccer and the ball rolls into the street, I realize that there's a likelihood that one of the kids might run into the road after the soccer ball, and so you brake and you need to train the cars to make that kind of prediction. And also, if you've got traffic signals and you've got a police officer, humans know that the police officer signals overrides whatever traffic signals may show, but again, they're working on teaching cars how to do that. For the non-passenger cabs, there's a lot of different use cases, and I'm not going to go through this whole list, but I do have a few photos just to show you. This is a Komatsu heavy hauler for use in mining applications, and this has been designed from the ground up to never have a human driver. There's no cab, fully automated for mine use, and it's low-hanging fruit in the sense that it's much easier to design a vehicle to run entirely on private property, like a mine site, and much harder to have one in traffic in, say, downtown Toronto. And one of the interesting things about Komatsu is their vision. Their published vision is to have a mine that's running completely on artificial intelligence, and the servers download the plan for the day to the equipment and to the fleet, and they execute it autonomously through the day, and with hardly a human in sight. It's the way of the future. They're not there yet, but Komatsu is fully committed to that vision. This is Vera, and in case you're wondering, Vera, the original Vera, is a Nordic goddess, and this is a Volvo truck. It's a prototype. It's working, battery electric, no cab, 300 kilometer range, really designed for initially for port applications, factories, logistics, and so on. And because it's all electric, it can easily and safely go inside a factory. And Volvo has said later on they want to have a version that can go on public roads and travel longer distances. And the cab portion has been designed so it can connect to any standard trailer. So the trailers are versatile and can be hauled by a computer or by a human driver. Another kind of surface robot is agriculture. There was a company near Regina called DOT Technology, and disclaimer, they're a previous client of ours, and they developed fully automated agriculture equipment. And that company was then bought out by a US company called Raven Autonomy, but they've continued to operate a facility near Regina. In terms of logistics, a UK company called Origo has made a pod for passengers, but they have adapted it to carry cargo containers between terminals and planes. And this is an actual pilot project in Heathrow Airport. One of my other clients is Thomson for winter weather testing, and Swap Robotics is based in Kitchener, Ontario, and they have a multi-purpose robot. This is has a blade on it designed for plowing sidewalks, and they are now testing this and demonstrating this robot in the snow in northern Manitoba. And the same machine can be adapted to do grass cutting in summertime. And here to Toronto, you may have seen in the past Jeffrey, these little pink robots. The city of Toronto has now banned them for the time being. And I do understand why they've been banned, and there's been concerns, and there needs to be some regulatory infrastructure to manage how they are used. And a colleague of mine, Bern Grush, in Toronto, is developing a global standard called ISO 4448, which is really an air traffic control type system or traffic management system for robots on sidewalks and for vehicles, including autonomous vehicles, parked curbside. There's a lot of technology, a lot of different companies involved. It's a really big ecosystem, and you can see what I like about this chart. It shows the different kinds of technology, connectivity, as the professor mentioned, safety, security, software, sensors. There's a lot of different companies around here in that ecosystem. And here's a similar diagram for the Waterloo region. And one of the things we're really lucky to have in Canada are these centers of excellence, ecosystems focused on the entire supply chain for CAVs of the future. Let me just talk about the impact of these CAVs. The big thing, especially from a traffic point of view, traffic engineering, they have the potential to be much safer than human drivers. A US study, which is often misquoted, says that 93% of collisions involve human error. This study is often misquoted to say that humans cause 93% of the collisions. It's more nuanced. The study says that most collisions have multiple causes. A common cause is bad weather and driving too fast for the weather conditions. And humans were involved. Human error was a factor in 93%. My hope and my prayer is that we can reduce collisions down to 20% of the current rate. But one of the things I grumble about in public is there's too much hype. Volvo has been advertising its, quote, a crash-proof car. I've called Volvo out in public. I say there's no such thing, and there's always going to be some collisions. US government is doing the same thing, talking about zero traffic deaths. Vision Zero is the same. These are wonderful goals, but completely unachievable. Now, I'm an engineer. I know that all hardware, all software fails occasionally. And as a minimum, that 7% of collisions that have nothing to do with the driver will happen whether a computer or a human is doing the driving. Bottom line, there will always be collisions, fatalities, injuries, sadly, but far fewer than we have now. One of the realities is all good things also have downsides. A lot of different industries are at risk, and I'm not going to go through this whole list, but let's talk about thinking of the bus drivers. Pre-COVID, I presented at a Canadian transit conference. When I finished, the first person to stand up was a union official for transit drivers. And he spoke for about a minute, very calmly, professionally, but very passionately about the human cost. about the way being out of work impacts not only the drivers themselves, but also their families, their spouse, the kids, and so on. When he sat down, I agreed with him, and that's an issue that has to be addressed. And the professor also spoke about the impact, the acceptance of new technology. And so with this, there will be pushback, social unrest, and we have to expect it and prepare for it. I chaired a workshop a while back with government and private sector people. And one of the policy people from the Ontario government said that she realized during the afternoon session that CAVs were going to have an impact on virtually every department of every level of government in the country. And I'm going to pick out one of these, healthcare. It's well known that for young adults, say between 18 and 30, traffic collisions are a leading cause of death. And what's less well known is the same demographic, 18 to 30-year-olds, who are healthy but die suddenly. That's a very important source of tissue and organ donations. So if we can save all those young adult lives, society benefits. But then people who need a transplant, eyes, lungs, kidney, liver, skin, tissue, whatever, there's going to be less of that till we can find a way to artificially make all those organs. So there is an impact on healthcare. I also spoke before Christmas to the BC Association of Chiefs of Police to explain how CAVs will impact policing, and the professor addressed that as well. Impact on transportation. And again, the professor mentioned some of this, transportation as a service. I wrote an opinion piece recently for the Ottawa Citizen, pointing out that in Ottawa and other places, the transit of the future is going to be a blend between mass transit and micro transit. And sadly, I pointed out that in Ottawa, we don't have a plan for how that's going to work out. And I urged people, and the Ottawa Citizen published it. And what was interesting to me is I got emails from people I didn't know. I remember one very vividly from somebody in Montreal who read that and said the same could apply to Montreal, and I suspect it'll apply to many other cities as well. And certainly I think that the professor talked about the impact on car ownership. And I see a future where perhaps a family that has two cars now might sell one, be a one-car family, and then use cabs, robo-taxis for the best of their needs. One of the most controversial things I say is that if, let's say by 2030 or in the 2030s, if data confirms that computers are safer drivers, then we as the province of Ontario, other provinces need to have a conversation. Do we ban human drivers? Is it ethical to allow human drivers to go out there and cause so many deaths and injuries when there is a safer technology alternative? That would be a very controversial. And interestingly, when I say this to audiences of seniors, they understand that. They understand that as you get older and cabs can in fact improve your mobility. Younger people like yourselves are already not getting cars or driving licenses in the same numbers they did in my generation. And the one demographic that's going to really push back on being banned from driving are people, middle-aged people who are really accustomed to hanging onto the steering wheel. Bottom line, it's 1908 all over again. 1908 was really famous because that was the year the Model T Ford was launched. And on the one hand, Henry Ford was a brilliant engineer and entrepreneur, but I doubt that even he expected the kind of changes we all saw throughout the 20th century due to the car, impacts on society, on business, on government, and certainly the 20th century at one level was the century of the automobile. I also showed that the CAV era had started gradually, slowly. 2020s will be the decade, I think, of non-passenger CAVs, and we'll see some passenger CAVs deployed, but the 2030s will see mass deployment of passenger CAVs. And there's a wide range of technologies, use cases, business opportunities. It's wonderful to see what's happening. I've spent my whole career on the leading edge of technology, and to be honest, here I am, a senior citizen, and I'm still at the leading edge of technology and having a wonderful time. So if you follow up, that's my email address. Feel free to reach out. We also publish a free newsletter called CAV Update. We aim to have about 50% Canadian CAV content, 50% international. If you want to subscribe, just drop an email to that address there, and all we need is your email address, and we'll put you on the mailing list. So that's the presentation, and I'll come out of screen share. And are there any questions?